What has the Progressive Professionals Forum achieved a year after its formation? Is this forum independent of government's influence? Are South African higher learning institutions a mimic of international universities? What is causing the delay in totally transforming the country's higher learning? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Bonge Kwala, standing in from Port Said today. As South Africa grapples with the challenges of ensuring that the National Development Plan's 2030 targets are met, it has become imperative for all of its citizens to also contribute to the country's development. As a result, higher learning institutions, professionals, academia, entrepreneurs, and other stakeholders are faced with the daunting task of not only plowing back to the country, but to help in addressing the country's socio-economic challenges. In their own unique way, the Progressive Professionals Forum and the Boston City Campus and Business College seem to be ready for this call. My guests today are Sipile Buthelezi, and he is the Secretary General of Progressive Professionals Forum, and I've got Dr. Linda Meyer from Boston College. To both of you, hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with you, Sipile. Here, you are 1 year old as the PPF. Yes. Really, what do you exist to do?
PPF as an organization is the body of professionals across racial and cultural divide in the country. And our objective of the PPF is to mobilize professionals in building and developing South Africa as a country.
Was there a gap in that area?
Yes, there is a gap. If you look at it, professionals are comfortable in their own professions. And if I can make an example, if you stay in Sandton, most professionals don't even know what is happening in Alexandra just across the road. And professionals are not involved in body politics of the country. They're comfortable in whatever that they are doing and not really caring as to what is happening with their neighbors or in the country
Why
as a whole.
is that, and why should they get involved? I mean, what's the point? I'm a professional, I'm all right, I earn whatever that I earn. Do I really need to bother myself with the goings-on in the country?
Yes, you have to. You have to be an active citizen. You have the skill which is needed in the country as a whole, even in government. We're not saying the professionals should be employed by government, but you can contribute from wherever you are into the running of the government, either through NGOs or be an active citizen in the country with the skill that you have.
Do you find that our professionals in the country are aware of what is going on in the country? Do you find that they are willing to participate in really being active citizenry?
I think with the existence of PPF, it's been a year now, as you alluded earlier on. Professionals are aware and they've found a platform. And remember that before PPF, there was no platform where professionals could actually engage and be able to interact with government. I mean, how PPF is structured is that it's structured in line with the 7 government clusters. 7 government clusters will be your justice, your economy, and health. And professionals are plugged into these clusters and they are able to interact directly with the government clusters. So they are aware of the issues and now they are willing and they are using PPF as a platform to be able to engage and be able to deal with some of the challenges that the country is facing.
How broad is this church, PPF, really? Are you racial? Are you taking from the likes of your Black Management Forum, for instance? The BBC, some are saying also is, taking care of a certain racial grouping in the country. Just explain that for us.
We are not racial. I mean, if you look at the national leadership of PPF, it's made up of South Africans from different background, different race groups. We have Indians, we have colored, we have, even in terms of religion, the South African president of South African Jewish Board of Deputies is one of the national leaders of PPF. So it's not just for black people. As I said earlier on, it is a body of professionals across racial and cultural divide in the country.
But Mr. Patel, is it important though to be racial? Because some would say that there is a huge gap, and black professionals have never been given an opportunity really to play in their own spaces where they operate, where they're professionals at, really. So they need to be fast-tracked then. Do you get that there's a need perhaps to be racial in doing these things?
I mean, our constitution, the Constitution of the Republic, allows for affirmative action, BEE, and there are many other legislations that were enacted or that are in place that cater for the improvement or transformation in the country.
All right, let me bring you in here, Dr. Meyer from Boston College. Really, the role that is played by education broadly in the whole transformation of the country, but also the role specifically that is played by yourself in working with the professionals.
I think what is important is that there's a broader context and discussion that's going on, and it's about unemployment of graduates and what role is played by educational institutions in assisting with that. So we can see from the latest research that was done that individuals with postgraduate degrees only have a 3% unemployment uptake, and people with first bachelor's degrees have a 5% unemployment rate. But we see that it is much higher for black professionals. There's still a huge transformation element that needs to take place. That's at 6.7%, and that's a huge difference. And we see that people that finish a diploma at higher education level, the unemployment rate there is 16%. What is interesting is if somebody's got a grade 12, their unemployment rate is 29%, and if they have less than a grade 12, their unemployment rate is actually 42%. So the broader context discussion about transformation is about what we are supplying to the marketplace to make sure that the graduates that we give to business are supported through work-integrated learning processes, and making sure that these individuals are employable. Because if we're speaking about transforming the economy, we're speaking about desperate skills that we need. And individuals might say that we do not employ graduates, but we can see from the latest research done by the Center for Development and Enterprise that, in fact, a lot is being done.
But some people might argue differently that a lot has been done because you see the number of unemployed graduates out there. I mean, people who are desperate, who have the skill, who've gone through the higher learning, and they just simply cannot find work. Where is the problem? Is it a structural problem? Is it a fundamental problem? Does it talk to the quality of education, of learning that we get from these institutions, especially the predominantly and the historically black institutions?
And I think you raise a very, very important point now. I've gone through the statistics of employment, but the real fundamental truth is that the historic black institutions, we know with employers that there's a level of discrimination that is applied. We know that when we ask what the preferential universities are, we know that it is the historically white known universities and private institutions where individuals are gathered from. And we must remember, in terms of our fiscus, we are spending 300 billion a year on education. So when we speak about people not being employable, it's because we're not employing or we're not training and educating in the correct fields. If we look at professionals, for example, doctors, lawyers, and engineers, there's a very low unemployment rate, 0.4% to be exact. If we look at BCom graduates, we're looking at 3.2% of people that are unemployed. But when we get to the other social science degrees, there's a very high level of unemployment. So what are we doing collectively to make sure that we are educating for employment and making sure that people are educated in the correct fields?
I'm glad you're asking that question yourself, because I would like for you, after the break, to answer that question, Dr. Linda Meyer from Boston College. Also, Mr. Siphile Buthelezi here, Secretary General of Progressive Professionals Forum. Question time takes a break. Don't go away.
Zimbabwe's government appears to be loosening its grip on the diamond trade. A new gazette is making provisions for private companies to cut polish and even sell diamonds internationally.
Companies will have to apply for permission from the state to sell the gems.
There is now less smuggling of the diamonds themselves, but the issue we now have is transfer pricing.
But civil society groups remain concerned about the illicit trade.
Industry watchdogs say more transparency is needed in the country's diamond trade.
Your World, weekdays between 11 and 12 midnight.
Welcome back. You are still watching Question Time here on SABC. My guest, Sipile Buthelezi, Secretary General of Progressive Professionals Forum, PPF as we know it, and Dr. Linda Meyer from Boston College. Mr. Buthelezi, higher education institutions in South Africa fixated with internationalization. That's a statement that has been bandied about, it's been spoken about quite broadly. Are you getting that sense that there is that fixation with trying to be US, Europe, really? Or can we model our institutions around who we are as, a developing country or even a developing continent?
If I could just touch on what my colleague has just said, that are we training the right graduate for the country? I mean, currently the issue is that the graduates that have been trained or graduates that come from these universities do not speak to the problems of the country. The type of degrees that are offered, the curriculum in different universities, do those curriculums speak to the ills of the country? Speak to the difficulties that the country is facing. You cannot be training, for example, if we have in the country, we have a shortage of engineers. Why is that when we have universities? If you look at the US, in the US, they look at the challenge in their society and then basically create or put together a curriculum that will be able to solve that challenge or come up with a solution focusing in that challenge or in that particular community. And most of our universities are not doing that. Hence, you will find that there are more graduates that are unable to find employment because the curriculum that is offered at universities does not speak to the challenges that are faced by our country.
But doesn't that curriculum at university really speak to what is happening at basic education, at lower education? Because you cannot separate the two. You progress with what was being taught at a lower level. Otherwise, there's going to be a complete disjuncture, isn't it?
I mean, that's correct. And
so we need to rectify things right at the basic level then.
And I think if you look at it from 1994, our education system has been changing, in order to be able to speak to the challenges that are faced by the country, and also to have that seamless interaction with the institutions of higher learning. I think we are getting there, but at this point, the crisis is that we really need to, in order to reduce the rate of unemployment by graduates, to really focus on the challenges that are faced by the country and produce graduates that will be able to be employable.
Are we in a crisis here, Dr. Mayer?
No, we're not in a crisis when it comes to graduates and degreed graduates. We must remember that when we speak about graduates, we're speaking about people that have got degrees. When we're speaking about individuals that are getting diplomas and certificates, yes, the numbers are definitely challenging for us. And the issue is that our employment and our economy, and in terms of social transformation, the skills are required. We have more than 1 million vacancies in this country. And if the correct skills are provided, there will definitely be an uptake by business. And I think the problem that we're doing disjointedly is that industry and educational institutions must work much more closely together to ensure that those skills are produced.
And I'll come to you, Mr. Buthelezi, about that, if we are working together, and if not, when are we going to start working together? But I want to ask this question quickly, Dr. Meyer, really. Our economy is growing by under 3%, really, and unemployment is huge. I mean, some are putting it at 40, 45%, 26% is what the Stats SA tells us. With the current scenario that you've just painted, are we ever going to be able to produce the skills that are needed by the economy to grow? And when then, if we are ever going to get to that point?
Well, the reality is obviously that we're spending about 300 billion a year on education. Most of that is going to primary and secondary education. But we know that when somebody comes out of grade 12, first of all, the people that are eligible for university placements, at the moment we have a 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 placement opportunity. So it means that between 25 and 33% of people that actually get university entrance are able to enter a public institution. So their choice is just to go then to a private institution to obtain that. And what we're saying is if there are people with degrees, because that is what the economy needs right now, that is what we should be training for. When we speak about our primary and secondary education, you must understand for an employer, the current pass rate for a grade 12 student is 33.3% and 2 languages at 40%. Now, when I'm an employer and I'm taking in individuals that are obviously functionally probably illiterate, it is a challenge for business to take up. So business is looking for graduates because there's a level of security in people that are professionals and have obtained degrees. Are we going to change it? Yes, we can change it. As we can see, the Minister of Higher Education and Training, we've already started 3 new universities, so there are higher numbers being employed all the time. The Deputy Minister of Education, Manene, has done incredible work in terms of that.
Okay.
But the issue is, we must look at the Brazilian model. The Brazilian model has allowed for 2,000 private institutions to open up. Public institutions simply are not able to produce the numbers of graduates that we need.
But why then this fixation on really rolling out FETs then if public institutions are not really that good?
Well, the public FETs, as we know, are now called TVET colleges, technical and vocational colleges. And there are some programs in terms of NATED and some of the technical skills where there is an absorption. But the reality is we have the statistics that shows us that when somebody does not have a degree, the opportunities for employment in HR marketing is very low. And the reality is if I have to ask somebody, are you going to take somebody with a BCom marketing degree or somebody that's finished a marketing course at a TVET college? The answer is obvious.
The answer is obvious. And really, Mr. Buthelezi, when you sit together with government, with business, academia, professionals, all these sectors of our economy, what do you talk about? Do you find some kind of a synergy, really? Do you find that the country is moving in one direction, or it's fragmented in its thought and it's in its implementation then of ideas?
To be honest, if you look at our conference last week, there you had professionals, you had business, you had some VCs of some of the universities. Okay. The problem that we have currently is that there are institutions that believe that they are independent as if they exist in a vacuum, and want to have that independency without really engaging with business and profession and even government. There is a response from the PPF. From the PPF conference last week from one of the universities where they are claiming independency. And we are saying that as a country, we cannot move forward and solve these issues if the universities or if some of the universities, especially the previously advantaged universities, continue to claim independence when when we are faced with a situation where we need to work together as a country and be able to solve some of the problems that we are facing as a country.
And I want to know, when we come back from the break, if you are fixing those and plugging those holes yourselves as the PPF. Question time takes a break. Please don't go away.
You can't have a gut feeling about other people's gut feeling.
Ngaba has continued the tradition of passing stories onto the next generation using a platform that offers stories to a far more greater audience.
Zombie no go unless you tell them to go.
This is what the audiences all over the world knew Fela Kuti for.
Join Musam Khalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
Welcome back. You are still watching Question Time here on SABC. I've got two guests here in the studio with me, Dr. Linda Meyer from Boston College and Mr. Sipile Buthelezi, Secretary General of Progressive Professionals Forum. You are 1 year old, as we highlighted earlier on, really. Do you find that you've made an impact in the past 12 months?
Yes, we have. If you look at the engagement that PPF members across the country are involved in from the grassroots level, in business, in tertiary institutions, we have made an impact, and we have raised that awareness among professionals to say that, you know, let us build this country. Let us work together in developing our country.
I'm struggling to find, for instance, an association of accountants in the townships and so on, an association of doctors, black doctors, so to speak, really. And you are an umbrella body at that level, but there is a gap here. What are you doing to make sure that you close that gap then?
I wouldn't say there is a gap, because if you look at professionals in PPF, are professionals coming from different professions.
Sure.
So you have your doctors, you have your economists, you have your lawyers, and those individuals, as I said, that PPF is structured in line with the 7 government clusters. They work in those clusters and they are able to influence using their expertise, using their profession. So I don't think there is a gap. PPF is a broad organization where you will not only find accountants or lawyers, as it were, but you find group of professionals from different backgrounds that are working together and have a common goal.
I guess what I'm asking really is that what are you doing to encourage and entice professionals then to be part of your movement, rather than taking for granted that they are professionals, they belong to their bodies, and those bodies then are affiliated to us?
What we've been doing for the past year is that to visit different provinces and launch. We have successfully launched 6 provinces. In 4 other provinces that have not been launched, we have conveners, we have committees that are actually working with some of the provinces. We work very well with the existing bodies or existing forums that are there, that maybe they are ABASA or BMF. We are a member of BBC, as it were, where most of these organizations are affiliate organization to BBC. So we are able to interact with them individually as we take the country forward.
Are you also an extension of government, really, or you are an independent voice that can challenge government in some instances?
We are an independent body that challenges government. I mean, currently what we are calling for is for the abolishment of the triple PFA, which is a legislation that regulates the procurement, as it were. And what we are saying is that particular legislation, triple PFA, should be abolished because it does not take the country forward, and also it prevents black business from doing and competing with people who were previously running the economy in the country. So in that way, that's the clear indication that PPF does, as and when required, criticize government. And I mean, the triple PFA, it's a government legislation, and what we are saying is that it should be abolished if you want black people to be active in the economy of this country.
I'm not going to ask you about e-tolls, but as you're sitting here, both of you, you're from different sectors, obviously, but can we draw a synergy of some sort? Do you have programs that you are pushing together, an institution of higher learning and the PFF, for instance, Dr. Meyer?
Yes, I think from our side, what we have done is we've got a very active work integrated learning program that we run. So whatever qualification we run, we ensure that we bring professional bodies on board as an integral stakeholder, and we work with employers to ensure that we have a supply chain for them and a talent pipeline of graduates that work with them during holidays, that are placed and are acquiring the prerequisite skills so that they can become productive members of society and contribute to socio and economic transformation in the country.
And are you seeing fruits of working together in that fashion?
I mean, specifically, we have not yet worked with Boston College, but listening to Dr. Mayer here is that they are not claiming to be independent. They want to be one of the voices that are out there calling for united South Africa and taking the country forward. So we are looking forward to working with Boston College as we have been working with other institutions of higher learning. Hence, we had the conference last week, which basically spoke to the transformation of institutions of higher learning and invited some of the vice chancellors of those universities to participate in the discussion.
And what did they say, those vice chancellors?
Most of them do acknowledge that some of the universities, especially the so-called top 5 universities, still need to transform, because you have a research that was done last year, October 2013, that says that it will take this country more than 300 years to fully transform the previously advantaged universities. And we are saying that you cannot have that. What we need to do, you need to have very, very strong extraordinary measures are required to transform these institutions of higher learning so that they are able to produce graduates that will be able to take this country forward. So working with Boston going forward, as they are not claiming that they are independent, they don't want any interference, we look forward to that working relationship in developing the country.
Are you seeing the previously advantaged institutions letting go of what they have simply because they have to be politically correct and belong, so to speak?
Yeah. I don't think it's about belonging or politically correct. It's about what do you want for the country. If you want the building and development of this country, you need to work with organizations that are actually working towards that. You can't be claiming that you are independent when, as a country, we are saying let's unite and build the country, and then you say you do not want to be part and parcel of people working together to build the country.
As the PPF, really, are you seeing yourself breaking down those walls of resistance to transformation and change in this country?
That's what we intend doing. In fact, we have started doing that. We are in the process of also producing papers that talk to those issues and be able to have influence in business and government and also those institutions of higher learning. I think some of them will eventually come to the party in us taking the country forward.
We wish you well. 12 months is still a long way to go, but thank you very much for joining us as Phile Butele is the Secretary General of a Progressive Professionals Forum. And thanks to you also, Dr. Linda Mayer from Boston College. That was a question time for today. A big thank you to our guests and to you for watching the show. We welcome your feedback via email on questiontime@sabc.co.za, or you can tweet us. Our Twitter handle is @questiontime24. From me and the rest of the crew, have yourselves a wonderful time. Goodbye.